Welcome to Concepts in American Government at Mesa Community College. This video looks at different theories of congressional representation. To begin, let's look at some of the politics of the legislature and what explains the way legislators behave. There's two different models for how members of Congress think of themselves. The first is the Delegate Model. Now here we have a picture of a congressman speaking to someone on the phone. It might be a constituent expressing a concern, or maybe he's trying to shake someone down for a campaign donation. Let's be charitable and assume it's the former. Why would members of Congress listen so intently to their constituents and the desires of their constituency? Well, the delegate model of representation argues that legislatures should do what the constituents themselves would do in Congress. If you had the time to go to Congress, how would you vote? Well, there's an expectation that the person you elected to go to Congress to represent you will vote the way you would have voted had you been in Congress. That's why you elected that person and not their opponent in the election. And so if a member of Congress is operating under this model, they will take great pains to find out what their constituency wants because they feel duty-bound to follow the voice of their constituency. Now, members of Congress are not robots, clearly, and they are going to have strong opinions on issues that they just feel their constituents are wrong about. But for the most part, representatives who view their job in Congress as a delegate will follow their constituency. I spent some time working in the U.S. Senate, and there were a couple of issues that the senator really didn't particularly care one way or the other on. They were not that important to the senator. And so he asked his staff member, what's the mail saying? And the staff member had kept a tally of mail and phone calls that had come in favor of this legislation, and he just put a little tick mark, and phone calls and letters against that legislation, and he just noted it with a tick mark. And he looked at that list and said, well, it looks like at about 2-1 they're in favor of it. And the senator shrugged his shoulders and said, well, I guess I'll go vote for it then. And so writing your congressman, calling your congressman, emailing your congressman can have an impact if your Congress representative is following the delegate model and attempting to faithfully execute their office as a delegate. An alternate model of representation is the trustee model. In this model, the elected person doesn't see themselves as a delegate to go to Congress to do whatever their constituency would have them do. Rather, they see their job is to use their judgment and make the best decision possible given the information they have. From the constituency point of view, constituents might prefer to have a trustee there rather than a delegate because they recognize that the information that we have here at home, the insights that we have, and our own parochial bias for how does this affect me may lead us to have a preference that isn't in the national interest or is incorrect because we don't have full information, where our representatives in Congress can have that wider information pool as well as more of a national perspective on things and might take votes that we actually disagree with but are good for our state or country in the long run. So that is a very different way of thinking about the job of a legislator than a trustee. Now, in this slide, I have pictures of some of our local elected representatives because they are two figures, Senator McCain and Representative Flakes, who embody this notion of a trustee model. They have a national reputation of being someone who doesn't do what their constituency wants them to do if they feel it's not in the best interest. We can contrast Senator Kyle with Senator McCain. McCain sees himself as a trustee. He ran for president on the Maverick notion. Kyle sees himself as a delegate and takes great effort to find out what the people of Arizona want before he votes. One's not necessarily better than the other. They're just two very different approaches to representation. We can contrast Representative Flake with Representative Grijaldi, for example. Flake sees himself as a trustee. Grijaldi sees himself as a delegate, and he attempts to make decisions based on what is good for his constituency in his district, where Flake tends to make decisions based on what, in his judgment, is best for the state or the country.
This video is brought to you by Dr. Brian Dilley. I'm a political science professor at Mesa Community College, one of the 10 schools of the Maricopa District.